Well, this dark gentleman thing.
Oh yeah, well, you know, I was talking to actually Pearl about this, and she just said, "Yeah, just nick titles off people." She said, "That's what I do. I just nick people's titles." And I said, "Do you change it a bit?" She said, "No, fuck that. I just if the title does well, I just nick the title."
Do you credit them?
No, because I don't. Well, no, because you don't really have to. I mean, we didn't. We actually in that instance we didn't steal his title, but
we did.
You know, no, I mean it's not. You know, what are they going to do? They're not going to come and sue you, are they?
No, I mean, no, I guess not.
Yeah.
So this is it.
So what are you doing now? You've had dinner. You're drinking a nice glass of red wine, chilling out.
Yeah. Went out last night to the sacred alleyway of doom that we know and we love. Met up with Crazy Alex.
Oh, how's he doing?
And the new Dr. Silk who's going to help me take over the Chinese market, the replacement Silk. Yeah, he's good. He's a bit crazy. He's a bit mental, but he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
But no, it was cool. It was good to see him actually. He's he as soon as I told him about the old hormone stuff, he's jumped straight on that. So I've set him up with a consultation with old Dave Lee, another one bites the dust. He started Muay Thai with this coach that I've sent a few guys to as well that I'm doing boxing with in Warsaw, who's really cool. So no, he's on good film actually. It was good to see him. He's got a similar thing to me where he's set up in Dubai in the free zone, so he doesn't pays what $4,000 a year fixed tax, and that's it.
Is he gonna do that as well?
He's already done it. He's been a resident, but he's got a different one. I've got a seemingly better one. He actually has to go to Dubai every 6 months. I never have to set foot in Dubai.
Yeah, so that's the one. That's the one I want, to be honest. I don't really want to set foot there, to be frank. But is he paying a bit less than you though? Because I think you're paying a bit more than that.
I don't think he pays anything, whereas I'm paying base. It seems like I'm paying like $6,000 a year. That's it, to not be in Dubai, not being in Dubai tax. But I'm happy with that, because all that would happen is I turn up. There'd be all sorts of weird powers and potions and pills on my person or on my accoutrement in my wallet, and I'd just be shafted straight away. I'd be right, do not pass go. Straight to the fucking slammer. That's the end of that chapter. Throw away the fucking key. Let's go to this crowd.
You wouldn't even make it to the hotel, would you? You'd just be like, right, listen, mate.
I'd be like that DJ who got arrested with a poppy seed bagel. There was two actually. There was DJ Groove Rider who turned up after a gig with a bit of spliff in his pocket, and he got 3.5 years in a Dubai prison. And there's another dude who'd been eating a Pret a Manger poppy seed bagel, and he got done for that, which is insane. Troy has inevitably, in classic Troy fashion, managed to delete himself from the metaverse that is this live stream. So we'll see if he pops back on. In the meantime, the reason for this, he's back. Here he is. Add to stream. Oh, you are back.
Sorry about that. That wasn't my Wi-Fi this time. That was me messing around. Sorry about that.
No dramas. So
did Groove Rider go to jail then?
Groove Rider went to jail for like 3.5 years in Dubai, and then there's another dude who basically I think had been eating like a Pret a Manger poppy seed bagel, and he got put away for a few years for that.
Yeah, I heard about that. I've heard about that.
Unreal. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Beirut really is the only place I've got interest in going to the Middle East. Very liberal place, very cool place. A lot of time for it. No real interest.
I'm definitely up for that. I'm definitely up for that. So basically, so far the audience is just getting, or whoever's watching this nonsense is just getting like a personal insight into our private conversations. Really, we're not really giving, But I guess that's where the value is, right?
Well, it is, and just on I guess continuing with the old personal note, I've been banging on about a lot. We've both been banging on about a lot about these hormones, but really interesting again, just doing these new blood tests. Dave Lee, the hormone guy, tracking it, and it shows up that now, not only now that I've got my testosterone levels on point, great, but it was actually very low in growth hormone, way below the natural level for my age. And which is very, very underactive thyroid as well. So now supplementing with both of the things to have both of those things, bringing that up, I feel a lot better. So it's really dialing in everything, I think, is super key.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the growth hormone thing seems a little bit surprising because you're not the smallest guy on the block, are you? But is it, do you think it had like shrunk or something as you got a bit older and it was not as good as it had been in the past, or had it always been quite low? Do you reckon, or do you
It's
not
hard to know because I never until recently I never got a growth hormone test. So it could have been, you know, and who's going to do that? It's not like you go into school with your carton of milk and they're like, right, line up, lads. We're going to do all the bloods and see what your growth hormones are. You know, it just doesn't happen, right? So
no,
it's not even a case of getting missed. In our time, it just wasn't even a thing. People aren't just
no. Well, there was certainly a bit of line up, lads, and one by one kind of thing, but it wasn't really for growth hormones. Well, not
That's
you know,
yeah,
not that kind of growth anyway. You know, Mr. Jenkins.
Mr. Jenkins. It explained the old patchy beard though. The fact of never actually been able to grow any proper facial hair. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, this whole thing is really fascinating. So, like I was telling you offline, I met up when I was in Vegas. I met up with RP Thor, who's that dude who looks like a biker. He's a very cool guy, actually. Older guy. He's in his 60s. Quite a colourful kind of a character.
Quite charismatic.
I met up with him, and he knows a lot about all of this stuff. So we had a really long conversation about it. It was really interesting.
Cool. Well, he looks in good nick for like 60, doesn't he?
No, definitely. But he said he only really started addressing this stuff really in his 50s or like early 50s. And he's like done really deep dive into it. So he seems to know a lot, you know, what he's talking about. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think certainly for guys as we are, you know, I'm certainly not getting any younger. You know, it's definitely something to look at, isn't it? You know, because already even I already feel. I don't think I've reached any sort of peak state with this stuff or anything, but I already feel like a lot better. I feel a lot more productive. Sort of, you know, I'm getting a bit less tired as well. Even though I've been traveling around quite a lot and doing some stuff, you know, doing late nights and things. I kind of feeling okay the next day. I don't know if you noticed that, but it feels like more energy and stuff.
Yeah, I have, and I think, I just think look, the guys are actually going to do the edge course. We're going to make this not mandatory because we can't force anyone to do anything, but we're going to strongly recommend what the test should be and get guys to go through that process. It's so worth looking at. Because, you know, the argument is we are just as strange as it sounds, we are just millions of bundled together cells with random chemical reactions firing. And if they're not firing correctly or in the wrong quantity or whatever, obviously that bundle of cells isn't going to be optimal. So making it a really weird kind of human Tetris analogy, the building blocks. I mean, it's kind of obvious now. It's one of these black swan moments for me. I'm just like, I wish I'd known this stuff years before. Done something about it years before, you know?
Well, it's like we were saying. I mean, it's almost a bit of a revelation because when you think about all of the game stuff, really, all of the stuff that's been written about game and the millions of videos that have been made about it and everything, really, a lot of what it comes down to, a lot of it is imitating what a supercharged masculine guy would do naturally, isn't it?
100%. And I wonder, I'd love to do an experiment in Eastern Europe. If you checked out the average testosterone level of a dude there versus a dude in the Western world, what the test levels would be. But my hunch would be they're naturally high testosterone levels. They're just more masculine. They're usually quite big. They've grown up in a tough environment induced by stress. There's none of this first world problem bullshit. You know, Ziza. All this wokeism. It's like you're just a tough. Generally speaking, the average bloke in the former Soviet Union is just relatively tough, even if he's a bit of a pansy in that culture. By Western standards, he's a bit of a hard nut. Well, and they a lot of them are taught to fight from very young. They're just quite masculine. They're quite dominant. They don't fuck around. They're quite piercing and honest with their intentions and their eye contact. It really is, you know, they're loyal, but they're also just fucking stand up to you straight away if you piss them off. I was in that shisha bar yesterday, and I was out with a couple of guys smoking shisha, the Ukrainian one, and there was a quite a hot bird with a group it was a mixed group. She was doing that thing of massively eyeing me up, like when she's on the dance floor in the middle of the room. But she was with a mixed group, and I knew they were all Ukrainian, so I was like, right, I can't just go in. It's just gonna. So I waited for her to go and sit down on her own at the table, and I went up and I was ordering a shisha slyly, and then just crouched down beside it. And within 1 second, two blokes had come up either side of me and both like tried to lift my shoulders up. And I was drunk, so I immediately like got up and I was in their faces, and it almost descended into a brawl. But you can just see straight away they don't take shit. Like, even if they're not banging her, they're just like, no, that bloke's around like basically a foreign invader, and right, we're getting rid of him. So they don't have an issue with confrontation or shying away from stuff that we often tend to do. This nicey, oh, no conflict, bro. There's none of that. They're loyal, but they'll stand up to you straight away. Really, they don't give a fuck who you are. And these blokes are both a lot smaller than me. Like,
well, that's the other thing,
sizably smaller.
Well, that's the other thing I've noticed, actually, because I know, you've talked a lot about size and everything, and I mean, that's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, even that time we were in that bar, and there were those two dudes and the two girls. I mean, those dudes, they were, they looked in okay shape, but it wasn't like they were, they weren't like massive, were they, or anything like that. But and I've actually in other places seen very masculine guys who aren't necessarily super huge or anything like that, but they've got that very dominant kind of air about them, and that sort of rubs off on the girls. Seem to fall in line with that,
Yeah, they love it. And if you think about the yin and the yang, two magnets, two opposite poles attract.
Yeah,
they're very masculine, and so by default that means the women are extremely feminine. It's the flip.
I'll tell you one thing, and this is we're not going quite as dark triad as this, well, necessarily, but in Berlin, when it used to be very active on this street called Kurfürstenstrasse, there's a lot of like prostitutes down there and stuff like that. And there used to be all these, I mean, I think there still is, I think, a bit, but there were like, you would see the pimps hanging out, and it was all these girls were like Bulgarian and Albanian and all this sort of stuff. And there was a cafe where they used to hang out. And
could I get one? Could you ask them for one more?
What was it?
Red wine, Primitivo. What's your shirt? What's this? LSD shirt. What is the pattern? Yeah.
I guess I could carry on, really.
Looks cool.
I guess I could have carried on there, but I just wanted you to hear this point as well. But so there was a cafe where you would get the girls, the hookers, and some of the pimps hanging around. And some of these pimps, like these young Albanian guys, they were quite. I remember seeing one dude, and he was quite small, probably even smaller build than me, like short and everything. But he was walking along in front of this girl, and she's just following him in this sort of, kind of docile sort of way. And it struck me at the time because I was like, that guy looks super hard. He's got this thing about him. And I'm not saying go and be a pimp, but it's kind of like, why is she falling into that frame? Well, it must be something to do with that masculine dominance, right?
I think it's maybe a way of putting this practically into action is, what are your beliefs, right? And it doesn't matter how you feel, you stick to your beliefs. And I think that's what allows you to have conviction. So maybe subconsciously, people that are very convincing in an argument, they just have these beliefs, whether they've established consciously or whether they just have these certain principles in their head that are going to stick to.
Yeah.
That allows you to have conviction. And something I've done often in my life, looking back on myself historically, is flip flop depending on other people's energy, right? And actually what you want to do is charisma is the ability to influence energy on other people, but also be unaffected by other people's energy. So if someone's in a bad mood next to you, you don't take that on. If someone's in a really happy mood, you don't necessarily take that on. You just are as you are. You decide your own state. So, I mean, something that me and Sam were talking about, Fluid Social Sam, is like the keys to the kingdom. What does Tate really well? Sam was going through his fanboy phase of Tate. I've always just thought, whatever with Tate. But the thing he does have is complete conviction in what he says. Which I think that's something that really seems to be ingrained in a lot of Ukrainian men that I've met. They just have conviction in their beliefs, even if their beliefs are ridiculous. They just have conviction. So that's quite a masculine trait as well. It's like, this is what I think. It's the verbal Gandalf. Thou shalt not pass. This is what I believe. That's it. I'll listen to your argument, but at the end of the day, I'm just going to overrule you because this is what I believe. Which is, people talk a lot about frame control and kind of they get the wrong end of the stick with that. But that's essentially frame control, isn't it? This is my reality. I'm going to stick to that. So something guys can assimilate is just deciding, right, what do you genuinely believe in? What are your beliefs in life? What are your values? Maybe spend some time hashing those out and try and live by those values. Because then it doesn't matter how you feel in the moment. And often our feelings
how do you feel?
London, San Francisco, how does it feel? Yeah. I invited Silk out and he turned me down. I said, I'm going to be in Gdansk. He goes, I on cruise ship counting money from foreign investor. I can't turn up. I can't see you. So I didn't go to Gdansk in the end.
Well, there you go. That's no good. But just to play devil's advocate slightly with this stuff, because we've talked a lot about, hormones and high T and stuff like that. But there are also high T guys who either they're not really getting results with women or the women they're with are complete boilers. Because I've seen guys who are like bodybuilder types and you look at their girl and she's like, Yeah, I'm not massively feeling it. So, would you say? And I mean, we do kind of cover all bases at the edge, but would you say that height? Because I think we're almost coming to this point now where we're saying just get jacked up, you've got super high T, and everything's going to fall into place. But there needs to be a little bit more to it, doesn't there? I think in terms of the mental stuff, and maybe that's more where the dark triad thing comes in. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think you need to weaponize your physical, your mental, your verbals, and your soul, right? You know, weaponize your body, learn to fight, be in the best shape possible, carrying very little fat, weaponize your verbals, learn to be extremely convincing, learn to have banter, be unreactive, be self-amusing, flirt, banter.
I was thinking about this the other day, and I think basically what we're kind of saying is the high T guy, if there was no social constraints at all, how would that do that? And some people are like that. Some people are very not unfiltered, just very, like you were saying, they have a belief, they act on that belief, and they don't care about the social pressure. But I think there are guys, even guys who are very high T, for example, who are also very conscious of, you know, social constraints and like, oh, I shouldn't really say that, I shouldn't really say this. And so they're kind of holding, even though they've got, probably their hormones are great, but they're kind of holding themselves back a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And it's sort of like, when we talk about, the high T guy, the optimized high T guy, we're thinking almost like in the wild, aren't we? But the reality is, I think there are dudes out there who still need to fine tune a little bit of the behavioral stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, let's run through some people, and you just say, you know, it's like a game. I say the person you spontaneously just go low T or high T. So we'll just do like 5. So Donald Trump,
high T.
Jocko Willink,
high T.
Russell Brand.
That's an interesting one. I think probably high. I think I'd have to say high T actually.
Old version high T, but new version spiritual hippie, probably quite low T. Probably vegan, doesn't go to the gym. A bit older.
He's got a bit older now, but he's actually got more right wing. I think as he's got, not that necessarily correlates, but I think his views are now pretty. He's on the conspiracy theory tip, isn't he? But I think it's interesting though. When he was younger, obviously when he was probably more skinny, and he was probably but he was very extroverted, and he really had that don't give a fuck energy. You know, he would just say whatever the hell he wanted to say. He'd be very outrageous. Did you see that news program when he was on that news program? He was very socially dominant.
Morning Joe. I've never seen a more impressive, just verbal
frame
takedown.
control.
And this is what we're talking about when Jordan Peterson says, "Be a monster." No, when he talks about weaponizing, he talks about how do you become dangerous, become verbally very dominant. That's kind of what he's talking about. The ability to hold court, hold frame, control a room, be very unreactive, self-amusing, and not basically be zero fucks given in conversation. And he demonstrates that. Russell Brand completely. My wine has arrived. Russell Brand completely demonstrates that to a T during that interview, doesn't he? He absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that interview is probably a masterclass in, I guess, what you call frame control, really, because it's like the frame, when you go into an interview like that, not that I've been on national network TV or anything, but you can imagine the setup. You know, you go in and they're in charge. They are who's this English gay-looking weirdo? You know, they've got and that's the assumed frame of the setup, you know, and he's there. And they would expect him to fall into that frame. So he kind of goes along with it and makes a joke, and maybe they say something. I don't know if they were particularly out to get him in that interview, but they said, "Oh, you know, you dress a bit weird," and he's like, "Oh, ha ha ha, yeah, I guess I do, but whatever." You know, they would expect it to go more like that. But what he did instead was he completely grabbed the frame, and he was like, "No, you guys are weird. You guys are acting in this weird fake way," which of course they were, because those media people all do. And it was just incredibly impressive, really, to have the balls and the self-belief really to do that.
100%. Charlie Hooper from Charisma on Command, high T or low T?
I don't really know him.
Low T.
Okay.
He looks like a flannel. He must be.
Chris Williamson.
I was going to say Chris Williamson. He's jacked and ripped, so he must be high T. But I think he's probably adamantly against supplementation. Although he has got a sponsorship deal with Marek Health, which is the equivalent of Medichecks, and he gets all his bloods done there. So why he's doing his bloods could be anyone's guess.
Well, who knows with any of these people, really. But
Krauser, high T or low T?
Well, he would say high T, wouldn't he?
Yeah, but if I want to see the bloods, I just want the bloods don't lie. Like it's a bit like the hips don't lie with that great poet Shakira. The bloods don't lie.
Oh baby, when you get bloods don't lie. He would say he's the highest T man in England, probably.
Show me his bloods and I'll show him his future. That's all I'm going to say. Dan Pena, high T or low T?
Who?
Dan Pena. Did you ever see him?
Oh, high T.
Michael Valmont, Brooding Nutsack. I mean, I know he's going to be high T because I know he takes experimental doses of anabolic substances. Yeah, it's an interesting one though. I went through a day of just thinking everyone I knew well. If someone asked me that, right, what category would I put them in, high T or low T? And a surprising amount of people were low T in my mind. Now, whether that's the reality, but judging by the fact that 90% of clients I work with over the age of 30, when I get them to get their tests are low T, it probably makes sense that I'm fairly accurate with it.
Well, do you agree with this? There's all this conspiracy, isn't there, about and it's a design because they want to feminize us and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, I don't know whether that's true or not, but it certainly seems like the environment. I don't know about the fluoride in the water and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how much validity any of that's got, and even if it has, whether that was by design or not. But it certainly seems like, generally speaking, the environment is created in order to. Well, it's like everything that Tate's going about, isn't it? To reduce masculinity, because masculinity is kind of seen as a bit of a threat, you know?
It's interesting, is it? Because the people are really in charge, you know, the owners of these big tech companies, the people who own hotel chains, they've been incredibly high testosterone to get to that level because that's that penetrative masculine force, right? That's almost psychopathic dark triad, high T masculinity. So it's a complete paradox because the people that sit in charge of everything are extremely high T and extremely dark triad, and what they want everyone else to do is basically be low T and be fucking pushover flannels, and that allows them to continue their kind of narrative. So it's an interesting paradox, but
yeah,
I don't disagree.
We were talking about this a bit actually. I went on that Access Vegas thing with Michael Sartain and Rollo the other day, and we were kind of talking about this. They started off by talking about the Barbie movie, which was a complete flop for me because I haven't fucking seen it. So but you know, contributing to that section was kind of hard. But basically, well, obviously I'll put my 2 pence worth in. But basically what they were saying was, or what Sartain was saying was, when you look at the studios, the people who make that, those studios were all built by dudes, you know. But it's been one of the most commercially successful movies ever, you know. And the reason I think for that is they've jumped on a bandwagon of sort of, well, you know, kind of denigrating men, basically, you know. And certainly that was what. And Sartain was saying, you know, masculinity is inherently in that film portrayed as being bad. So the Ken character is
Ryan Gosling.
And he said, even when the Ken character thinks, oh shit, I better work on myself, I better do some shit to make myself better, that's seen as like, oh, that's your male insecurity coming out. You feel like you need to make yourself better. And Sartain was saying, no, he was saying, look, the reality is everything around us has been built, and he actually used the term, by violent men who had to force through things 100%. To happen.
I'd agree with that.
You know?
I'd agree with that.
And it's like, and you could, on the one hand, you might say, well, something like the Barbie movie, oh, it's like cultural programming. They're trying to make us all soft and blah blah blah, and that might be true. But equally, I think they just knew it was going to make money because that message is commercially very popular now. You know,
and they were saying,
I didn't even know about this, but they were saying like, they got this whole like social media campaign where on TikTok guys were dressing up in pink and going, yeah, we're going to see the Barbie movie. You know, like straight guys. They were like, you know, getting everyone to jump on this bandwagon of a film that basically, apparently, kind of just, you know, says masculinity is a bad thing.
Is that so? That's Ryan Gosling plays like this kind of simpy chump in the movie. Is that how they've made out? Because I haven't watched it, but
I haven't watched it, so I'm gonna have to watch it. But from what they were saying,
market research as you crack one out. So
well, I mean, Mike Sartain has seen it. Obviously, Rollo's seen it and probably written a 7,000-word essay about it or whatever, or done a 17-hour live stream. But basically, from what they were saying, it sounds like the Ken character is. It's just. It starts off quite light and funny, but then it gets a bit more serious. And then basically, the message is just like masculinity inherently is bad. It's kind of weak. These guys are, you know, big dick energy, and it just kind of pushes. You know, I don't know, man. I need to watch it really to give a proper opinion, but. From what they were saying, that sounds like the case. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I was on mute. Yeah, I was just going to say I'll do some market research tonight with a box of Kleenex.
Well, Margot Robbie, I mean...
Well, she used to be a staple at our old favourite. Well, it was never my favourite. I thought it was fucking garbage. But Inferno's. Fernies.
Yeah, she used to go to Inferno's.
Can you imagine her?
I wonder if she ever got finger blasted on that bit with the sticky carpet next to where the gorilla thing is.
Oh, you haven't lived if you haven't been finger blasted on the sticky carpet.
Some of my greatest memories being,
Mr. Jenkins, get on your knees. So we've done, as in fashion, we've covered nothing of what we're supposed to do in this stream. But basically, the key thing is the Edge version 2 takes you from flannel to high tea, dark triad, dark gentleman, having stolen that phrase for the stream. And so, guys, you do have only 2 days to sign up before it shuts forever. It closed on August the 15th. I'm going to post I'll post the details. So we have, it's HTTPS. And then it's
basically the Edge. Cards with 2 R's .co, I think.
Okay, right. So I'll post the link there. If guys want to check it out, go there. That's what you get in the course. And then send us an email, troy@realtroyflorence.com or info@jamestusk.com and include your WhatsApp number, and we will be in touch. We've got 6 guys signed up to the Bogota Bootcamp. So we got room for a couple more. 19th to 22nd October, shadow side, anything goes. Area apps, day game, night game. I personally know all 6 students who are coming out because I've worked with them before. It's a really good group of lads, and you'll have a blast. And it's a discounted fee. It's the Edge, the whole 6-week actionable course starting the end of August, which runs for 6 weeks, plus the 4-day
coming on bootcamp as well.
Yeah, for £297. So it's massively discounted on the normal bootcamp price alone of what we usually charge. And then
it's a ridiculous deal, really, because they're getting the whole digital course and us banging on for 6, like mentoring for 6 weeks via the webinars. Plus, they get to actually come on the bootcamp as well, which is pretty extraordinary. And I mean, obviously, you introduced me to Bogota. I remain eternally grateful for that because I'll probably end up domiciled there in my old age, surrounded by Latinas. And yes, it's just a great place, isn't it? Very good for what we're trying to do here, which is this kind of shadow side, darker side kind of experience. And it might seem like we've just been rambling on about a load of nonsense for half an hour, which we kind of have been, but it is all relevant because what's at the key of all of this, really? Because again, we've talked about this many times. The old school game coaching, it's great. There's some great insights in there. It certainly helped me a huge deal. But the problem is, unless you're bringing some kind of like oomph to the party, unless you're bringing some kind of masculine edge, hence the name, to the party, you're going to fail more often than not, particularly in this dating environment, which is hyper competitive. We're surrounded by, hyper high value dudes, particularly in these big major cities and everywhere really. And obviously girls can connect with them on social media and stuff. So you need to stand out from the crowd. And I think the reason a lot of guys fail is because even if they try doing a bit of approaching or doing a bit of game or whatever, and most guys aren't even trying, but the guys even that do, they're not bringing enough charisma to it. They're not bringing enough masculine edge to it. They're not bringing enough sexual energy to it. And so they just end up getting blown out of the water.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, let's go into this term we put here. How would you describe? We are, credit to the guy who kind of came up with it. I've listened to a couple of his things. He seems switched on. He's a data scientist called Vincent Harinam. And he termed this coin dark gentleman, which is essentially similar to what we're already talking about in the Edge, isn't it? It's getting yourself on point in terms of a strong masculine man, but then tuning it up with some kind of, I guess, slightly dark triad tendencies, which are attractive. They're charismatic. Yeah. The most leaders, i.e., most modern politicians, they're quite dark triad. They're quite charming. Right. They're quite charismatic.
Nigel Farage, high T or low T?
Good question. I'm going to go with low T. I think he drinks too much beer. I think he's got bitch.
He does. He's
always with an IPA, isn't he? IPA.
Yeah. All right, Boris.
High T, 100%.
He's got about 16 kids, hasn't he? He's still looking them out now.
100%.
He's like,
High T.
Keir Nutsack.
Who?
Keir Starmer.
Keir Nutsack. Well, I mean, to get into any leadership position, you would assume high T, wouldn't you? But I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's a funny one. We'd have to see his bloods, man. We need to see all these people's bloods basically before we can make a full assessment. Because it's kind of like you say, to get to that position, you've got to be pretty cutthroat, right? But at the same time, there's a slightly flannelly edge to him. But I don't know. It's an interesting one.
Show me the bloods and I'll show you. Show me the bloods and I'll show you their future. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really fascinating, isn't it? How much difference this stuff makes, and actually how you can affect it. You know, that's the incredible thing, isn't it? It's I don't know, man. It's really interesting because I think in the past I've probably thought about this stuff more in terms of psychology, like, oh, so what's your mindset? What's your psychology? But your psychology, of course, is affected by.
Give me 1 sec. I'll just open this girl. I just want to see where she's from.
Oh, okay. But your psychology, of course, is affected by your hormones. So, you know, it's kind of interesting how much the physical body, the physical presence, will affect your mindset and the way that you behave. I'm just trying to have a look at some of these comments here. Love from Turkey. Front of infill videos were amazing. A dark gentleman sounds like you're gonna what? You're gonna point is a I can't. Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. I think with the dark gentleman thing, what we're really saying, I think an important part of it is the gentleman part as well, right? Because this isn't about becoming a complete arsehole. This is about having that gentlemanly vibe. You know, she can feel safe with you. You're like a good guy in inverted commas, but you've also got that sort of that charismatic energy. You've got that edge to you. That's the super important thing. And actually, someone like Justin Waller, for example, goes on a lot about.
I wondered how long it would take you to bring up bloody Justin Walnut.
Did you get? Well, you know, you just leave me for 5 minutes.
And guess what? 100%. We always talk about these places that we have an affinity for. So for me, Brazil, Russia, Serbia, Argentina, Colombia, and Ukraine, I always do well in. And it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. Always the strongest IOIs are getting Poland from, lo and behold, Ukrainian women. Another Ukrainian who is from Lviv, and she said, good.
Did you get the number?
Yeah. Well, the telegram.
Was it the one you were talking to before?
Say again?
Was it the one you were talking to before?
No, completely different one. I've got two now, just sitting there doing later game, waffling away with you.
But that's but no, I mean, I do as well actually. When I'm there, it's always the Ukrainian girls I get the IOIs. I mean, I have dated a couple of Polish girls over there recently, but it's been more the Ukrainians, to be honest. And which is great because obviously they're the best. You know, I mean, they're fucking great. No, I was mentioning Jay Nutsack just because he uses the gentleman term quite a lot. He talks about gentlemen, you know. It's like, hey, I'm a gentleman, young lady, you know, kind of Southern gentleman thing. But he's also, I mean, you know, he's also got this very sort of like masculine kind of edge to him, and you've got to combine the two.
Do you think he's dark triad or Justin Walnut?
I don't know, man. Hard to say. Maybe. Probably. I mean, everyone is a little bit. I think everybody who becomes successful on social media or doing this kind of stuff, they've got to have a somewhat Machiavellianism about it.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think he's probably, if I was trying to score him, I'd say he's high on narcissism, but probably low on Machiavellianism and low on psychopathy, if I was guessing.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, who knows, really? I mean, he's certainly a very good networker, which I don't know whether you would count that as sort of being somewhat Machiavellian. Maybe you would, you know?
I mean, anyone that gets down on their knees and opens their mouth wide for Tristan Tate Schlong is a good networker in your book.
Well, it's a high-value schlong, you know?
Do you think when David Bond bangs MLD, does he make him wear a ball gag or not?
That's an image I don't really want to.
It'd be like the scene from Pulp Fiction. Anyway, he just gets him out the box in the gimp suit.
Well, who's the gimp? Who's the gimp in that scenario?
I mean, they're both gimpy in my book. So this dark gentleman term, how would we kind of sum it up? Because you were gonna pen a book called The Black Prince, which basically is quite similar, isn't it? It's like the good guy, but with an edge, the anti-hero, 75% good, 25% bad.
and this goes back to, you know, the mentor of all mentors, to Mr. Torero, because he talked about this, didn't he? The nice bad boy, or what was the thing what was the Buddha thing that he did? Buddha. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was going for the same sort of thing, wasn't he? Really, which is because you've got to have that. I think you've got to have that nice. I mean, nice is the wrong word, but she's got to kind of feel safe with you. She's got to feel like. I mean, I think guys, because there's so many guys who are super, super literal in this space, they'll take it one way or the other. They'll think, oh, right, so I'm just going to be a complete arsehole the whole time. I'll be just like yelling at her or insulting her. And it's not about that at all, you know?
Well, and that's really what the edge is, because a lot of the questions we get from guys is, right, okay, you're talking about this, I get it. Dark Triad is sexy. If you look at these kind of characters in movies, these, you know, the Thomas Shelbys, the Cillian Murphys, the Christian Bale as Batman, the Daniel Craig as James Bond, I can see the appeal from a woman's point of view. I'm smart enough to see the appeal from a woman's point of view, but how do I swing into this role without going too far the whole way and just becoming a fucking idiot? And this is exactly what the edge does. We've laid out step by step how to integrate this stuff with actionable stuff to actually become the nice bad boy or the Black Prince or the dark gentleman or a man with edge without becoming a fucking retard. Never go full retard. And that's really what it is. It's a gradual process, isn't it? But it's taking you from nice guy. Look, we all come from this nice guy background. Every single guy watching your content has come from a nice guy background. If you're a true gangster, you know, you're an arms dealer, you're a drug dealer, you're not watching our content. You're out there fucking living it.
But if you are, and you've got any spare guns and you want to, you know, hand them over, then
trend racking guns is the key to a happy life, isn't it? In 2023.
But I mean, again, you know, we always come back to James Bond, Daniel Craig, James Bond. But like, if you look at those movies, he's got. You know, I wish I could think of another synonym other than edge, but he's got that edge to him. When he has conversations with women, he's got that sly, smart. He's got that kind of. He's quite stoic. He's very masculine, but he's got that kind of like slight, wrinkly sort of like humor as well, and all of that. But he's there to look after the girl. You know, like when the
actually, in some of them, he strays into really dark. He goes darker, doesn't he? He ups the shadeness of darkness and ends up getting the girls killed. You know, in Quantum of Solace, he goes very dark. So he swings.
What's the one where the girl gets shot when she's got? Is it with the apple on her head or something?
Oh, that's Skyfall. I mean, he seems to get women killed in all the movies, actually.
Oh, okay, all right. I take all that back then. I can't remember it properly. But usually with the main female leads, he's also the protector figure, isn't he?
He's the protector and also the bringer of emotion, you know, to make them excited, to put them in this. It's all about, again, charisma being you're the emotional ball of sun and you react. You've got so much strong frame and conviction. Everyone you come in contact with feels stuff because of you. And he puts these women through a roller coaster of emotion and they get hooked on it. You can see, you know, and
I think is the most important thing, really. And this is the thing: if we could bottle it and sell it, which we're kind of trying to do in the edge, really, but if we could bottle it and sell it, we would be billionaires. Because it's not about the lines you use. It's not about what was your stack or what was your did you vibe on all the all of that old bollocks. You know, it's that all of that stuff is good to have as a structure to have in your back pocket. But ultimately, what's really important is the energy, the emotions that she feels in the moment of the approach or on that date. You know, it's like, how is she feeling physically in your presence, in her body, right? And that is kind of hard to communicate to guys, but that to me is the fucking key thing. Like, I've done some, you know, sets in my life that really, if you looked at it from a game perspective, fucking terrible. You know, like, what the fuck were you talking about that for? That's just really stupid thing to talk about, whatever. It doesn't matter because it's not about that. It's not about the verbals. It's about the communication between the two of you. And that really is the key thing, I think.
Yeah, and there's a video recently on the channel from Brett Slade, who you've met. He's got very good eye contact. His not sub-communication is very good. And guys are slagging him off on the channel, going, "Oh, he's just walked up. They're talking about nothing in particular." And the title of the video is "From Street to the Sheets in 90 Seconds." But essentially goes on an instant date within 60 seconds, goes for one coffee and takes her home. And it's all done through the sub-communication. What the purists are missing there, or the uninformed, is the fact doesn't have to be verbally good game. Brett is not a talker. But what he's very good at is projecting sexual intent, and the girl either buys in or she buys out. And so guys are completely missing a trick with that. Yeah. I mean,
sexual intent is so key, and I think one of the problems is because we've all been brought up on this diet of, say, Torero, who, you know, very great, you know, great at game, great at verbal game and everything else. People think, okay, right, so it has to sound very clever, or it has to sound very sort of, and it really doesn't. And the thing about Torero that maybe people overlook a little bit, or maybe they don't, I don't know. But having actually hung out with him in person, he did have a very strong, like his eye contact was incredibly good. You know, he did have a strong presence. Right? So he was bringing those things into it as well. It wasn't just like flowering verbals and stuff like that.
Yes, that's a great point.
By the way, did you know I got green lined by Rivellino?
No way. You're on
I'll send it to you afterwards. So
the
I got green lined.
The hype train that is Rivellino. He green lined you.
Yeah,
where did you get the photo? What was it? Photo?
I've had some contact with him in the past, so it's not like we're unknown to each other. But I posted this photograph because I hung out with this girl in Vegas, and there was a couple of photos, and I posted one photo, and actually I put an advert for the Edge underneath it. It was just whatever, you know. And I got and somebody sent it to Rivellino and said doesn't pass the green lines test, and then Rivellino goes, yeah, good one, and then he green lined it, and basically because what the flaw was, so because this green lines thing is so fucking, like, you know, I'm always quite careful if someone takes a picture that I'm like this, you know, I'm not going to be leaning into her, because obviously that's the cardinal sin, isn't it? Supposedly. But the problem with this picture was not that I was like straight, but she was, rather that she didn't have her head like leaning on my chest like that. She was kind of like doing the Instagram girl, like, you know, thing like that. And so the green line was I was straight, but she was like that. And he was saying, oh, it should be like this, you know? And I was like, well, I mean, I know what he means, but it's really, I don't know. The thing is, it's a lot of it's about context, and also as well, I mean, girls just do that stupid shit in photos, right? I mean, like
it's a snapshot. The problem is it's a snapshot in time, and it's not reflective of the dynamic that's going on. What they should do is he should do a video version, which actually gives the context, rather than just taking it, because anyone can do a snapshot. Like I'm often, like, when I'm getting animated, will lean in like this and lean out, and if you snap then when I'm leaning into the girl, you know, whatever, but it's not representative of the dynamic of how it's actually playing out.
Well, also as well, I mean, one pushback that is genuine, I think, that he does get is, well, sometimes in a picture you kind of need to lean in order to get into the frame. So there's that as well.
Well, the other pushback is he's a fucking basement-dwelling Indian virgin, so he doesn't have any fucking standing in this bollocks anyway.
But somebody wrote underneath, he was like, and I was like, I tagged in the girl, because the girl's on Twitter as well. I was like, well, you know, I said, listen, I've got no beef with Riv, but this is bollocks, because this was just in the moment. She's just doing an Instagram. Like, I don't know, whatever. I was like, if you're that bothered about it, you can ask her. And I tagged her in. But somebody wrote underneath, you're just a fake day gamer. Riv sees right through you. I'm like, well,
I like the way he's got.
What's his fucking authority to see through me?
He's also got the same name as some, like, you know, ex-Brazilian footballer. Like, and he's some like Indian dwelling, you know, Indian dwelling virgin. I mean, fuck him, whatever.
It's just quite funny anyway. So there you go. Yeah. So my 5 minutes of fame.
Well, they say any publicity is good publicity, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's run through some comments. Hello, Tusk and Troy. Back to your degenerate shenanigans, I assume. Question mark from Jactus. The jacking off cactus. The cactus that never stops producing. Yes, I guess we are. We will be officially rejoining forces in Bogota. It's going to be amazing. October. Get in touch. There are a couple of spaces available. Remember, the Edge starts in 2 days on the 15th of August. If you can't afford the Bootcamp in Bogota, 19th to 22nd of April, plus the Edge for £2,797, you can afford, well, if you want to, your 6 weeks actionable Edge, just the Edge course, where we literally put all of this stuff, we take it, make it all practical, how to go in 6 weeks from nice guy, soy boy to dark triad, sexual man. It's £797. Send us an email, info@jamestusk.com or realtroyfrancis.com, and include your WhatsApp number, and we'll be in touch. We've got a couple of spaces left for the Edge program as a standalone, a couple of spaces left for Bogota. Troy is, yup, indeed, has said, Troy and his fantastic internet connection adventures. But his internet
is it any better?
Fine. Yeah, it's way better. It's just your laptop that's the issue. Yeah. Tusk, what do you think about your former student first-person approach to the guy that approached with a bike? So that guy was, I didn't realize it at the time because he seemed relatively normal, but he was high on the spectrum, I think Asperger's. And he basically was very social and calibrated. So he ended up doing things like going into the, basically harassing women in the same spots in different shops. And then what happened is he basically got outed on some internet forum. So he got a lot of hate, which is never good. But he basically got the whole village mob mentality of people would punch him if they saw him where he lived. He lived in a small town in the UK. But then what he did is in classic, don't take responsibility for where you're at mindset. He then turned on me. I'd worked with him 3 years before I did a taster session with him, which is only 2 hours. And then he basically just said, he turned on me, said I was like a rapist, said I was like a fucking paedophile, all this stuff for no reason other than he was getting harassed. Just classic incel bloke, really. So that's what happened with him. Scott, yo, James, MD Arif, hello, Tusk, I'm from Malaysia. Nice to meet you. What did Mr. B, the Oslo coach, get in trouble with? Shagging too many birds. Howdy, gentlemen. A lot of guys talk about the dark triad, but Troy's the only one I know who talks about the dark tetrad. That's because he's a sadist. 69 Days of Sodom is like the Bible beside his bed. He wakes up and reads the tomes from the verses every day.
I just read a few pages. I just read a few pages each day just to keep me in the.
Is it any good? I've never read it. Is it a decent?
I have read it actually, and it's kind of. It's quite entertaining. I mean, it's pretty dark. It's entertaining, but it gets more and more absurd as it goes on. It goes from sort of like kind of quite sexy, like just normal-ish sexy stuff, to then it gets into threesomes and foursomes and then whipping and all this kind of stuff. And then it ends up with these really short chapters saying something like, yeah, just chuck her out the window into a wheelbarrow and shit like that. It's like, how's that even a turn on? Like,
if guys want a good dark triad book as a starter, I'd check out The Story of O by a French writer called, I think it's Pauline Rieg. And she wrote it as a man, I think, in the 1950s France because it was so stigmatized, but it shows the reality of women's sexual fantasies. It's very hardcore. It's the original 50 Shades of Grey, and it's hard. It's a hard version of it. It's worth checking out. I've sent it to a few girls, and they loved it. They were like, "Fuck."
Actually, well, my ex, who will remain nameless, she was a big fan of it. Independently. Sorry, that, and also actually Marquis de Sade. I mean, red flag central, right? But also Marquis de Sade, but not just. I don't know if she'd read 120 Days, I think, but he's got another one called Justine, which I haven't even read, and she was into that as well. So she's quite into her. And we met in a sex club. I guess if Rich Cooper was here, he'd be spinning in his sauna, wouldn't he?
Rich Cooper, Mr. M pointed this out. Bit of a turncoat, I must say. I'm a big fan of Rich Cooper, but after slagging off Fresh and Nutsack for years, going, oh, there's fucking red meat, get a load of birds in. Guess what he does? He does a fucking thing called Ladies' Night, where it's just a load of these fucking old boilers in a room. It's like, fucking hell, mate. Talk about turning on your fucking supposed principles.
Everybody does. Everybody does the same thing now.
Well, apart from us, we're not clever enough to do that.
yeah. Well, we can't sit in the same place for long enough to actually do it successfully. But
that's true.
It's very much because even old. Do you know that TripAdvisor guy or Jason Tripp or whatever he's called? He started doing it now as well.
He's fucking annoying, that bloke. He's definitely low T.
He's started doing it. It's just everyone does it. It's just like, right, get a load of birds around the table, talk about body count, talk about high value man, blah blah blah. Go on for 2 hours.
Such fucking nonsense. The other follow-up book, actually, which is linked in a way that guys should check out, Dark Triad reading for you, A Billion Wicked Thoughts. 2 Google engineers compile the biggest porn engine's data and show what 1 billion people, both men and women, actually watch. Because obviously on surveys, when you're filling this shit out, I don't know who fills out porn surveys, like more am I watching, but even if you did, you're going to get people lying about it. Whereas this takes the raw, unfiltered data and compiles it.
Yeah.
Very interesting reading, but very high proportion of women admitting to watching
Have you read
fantasy porn, which is,
yeah.
Sterling Nutsack talks about it, but, be dangerous, be a man that has a propensity for violence, right? And there's obviously, again, a link to this raw masculinity and what the ultra opposite, the polar opposite, the feminine is going to respond to, the extreme feminine. They're going to respond to the opposite.
I think, there's a sort of a bit of a disconnect in society, I think, because you've got, on the one hand, Sartain was saying this the other night, you don't actually, when you think about it now, you sort of, it's becoming the case that you kind of don't actually need to be high T in order to be successful in society, because when you think about the people that, you know, the coders, the computer geeks, or, you know, whatever, you can actually make a shitload of money and be sort of successful without that. Now, interestingly, it's kind of interesting how you've got the likes of Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and Elon and all that, and they're all getting into their martial arts, they're all getting jacked and all that kind of stuff. But initially they probably weren't, you know, and they became very successful and rich. So on the one hand, there's kind of no surprise that testosterone is dropping, because we sort of don't really need it as much because of the nature of our society. But on the other hand, what hasn't caught up are female attraction triggers, and females are still attracted to the same stuff that they were previously. So you've got this kind of problem where you can sit in front of your laptop all day and eat Cheetos like I'm doing now and be low T, and you could be pretty successful in your job and stuff, but the characteristics you're presenting are not really attractive to women because the biology hasn't caught up yet.
It's a bit of a dichotomy, but essentially, if you look at the Zuckerbergs, who you'd argue before they kind of decided to go a bit more high T, weirdly, they were still alpha by society standards because they called the shots in a big way.
Yeah.
A lot of social control and power and wealth. So they might not be edgy, but they're still alpha by the standards of mating. And I find it ridiculous but it's old habits die hard, because they were obviously chumps who didn't get laid when they were at school. So instead of flipping into like these orgy loving, you know, fucking fuckboys, they still bed down with absolute fucking munters. I mean, Bezos is bird. It's like fucking 50-year-old old boiler with a really masculine energy. Zuckerberg's married some fucking noodle from fucking Noodlestan. I mean, who's not looker? I mean, not looker whatsoever. You're just kind of wondering what are they doing? Why are they absolutely porking it up for the lads? You know, Bill Gates at least was on the old Lolita Express. At least he was up to no good. Good lad.
Well, Elon seems to. I mean, he was with Grimes. To be fair, I reckon Grimes kind of fits in my wheelhouse, really.
Is that she's a DJ or something?
No, she's like a pop singer.
Is she hot?
I think she kind of fits into the sort of slightly alternative Magda kind of mode. So I probably would, but I don't know who else is with her.
Grimes, Elon Musk. Here we go, Canadian musician. Oh, hey, she looks very. She looks a bit dark triad, actually.
But if you look at, there's some pictures of her, she looks really good. I mean, she looks weird in some pictures because of her makeup and stuff, but
she looks like bad news. I mean, she looks like bad news for a long-term gig, that's for sure. What was I going to say? So, let's keep going through some of these questions. There were some pretty average ones as usual, but we'll crack on anyway.
Has anyone asked about how to pick up girls in the gym yet?
No, but there is the jizzing cactus has commented an interesting comment, which I think it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on this. He's obviously said it as a statement. Approaching mixed sets is the same as asking for an arse kissing. Do you agree with that?
Approaching
mixed sets. So a girl and a guy, maybe. I'm assuming that's what he means. Is the same as asking for an arse kissing.
Does he mean arse kicking?
Oh, sorry, arse kicking. Yeah, completely changes the meaning. It's not though, is it? If you're calibrated, because not often, but I've frequently seen, well, so often, a gay guy with a girl, and the guy's clearly fruity, and that's fine. And I've also seen them not to get, two colleagues. And again, maybe the guy secretly wants to bang her, but he's buried deep in the friend zone, isn't he? So why not give it a shot?
Yeah, I think as long as you're calibrated about it and you go in, and usually the classic advice is to sort of get by with the guy. So, I mean, I did it in Warsaw one time. I saw this really, really cute girl who turned out to be a model, and she was with a guy and I think another girl. And she I think there was a tiny bit of eye contact or whatever. So I was like, sorry. So I just went in and I said to the guy, hey, listen, guys, good. Looks like you're having a great Sunday. But are you guys together, or what's the vibe here? And the guy was like, no, I'm friends with her or whatever. And so then I started talking to the girl, and it was fine. And like you say, I mean, there's a lot of girls with like gay friends as well. So that, I think it just depends on the circumstances. If you go in and they're boyfriend and girlfriend, and then you're super uncalibrated and you just go in this stupid way, then yeah, that's obviously not a good thing to do. But more social groups, I think, is fine. I mean, it's not my preferred thing, to be honest, but I mean, and the other thing is as well, you might want to be on the lookout for IOIs a little bit more in those situations, because obviously if you've had a little bit of eye contact with her or a smile or something like that, it's going to make the journey more smooth, let's say.
Well, not to go on the jab with the sex toys, but I'm a big fan these days of really trying to force IOIs as much as I can. And I'm not saying I don't. I still will approach if I see a girl who hasn't given me an IOI, which obviously happens. I'm not that good looking, but I really try and force some sort of buy-in from the girl these days in every conversation I go into.
Well,
it just makes life so much easier.
Well, actually, so in Miami, I actually approached a girl who was with two guys. But the reason was I didn't even actually know she was with two guys. Like, basically, she gave me eye contact. We were walking around the bar. She gives me eye contact. I could see there was one guy there, but she gave me this really strong eye contact. So I went in and just started talking to her. And lo and behold, it turns out she's like, oh, this is my friend. He's with his boyfriend. And there were these two dudes there. I was like, okay, fine, whatever. We chatted back and forth. And, and it all works out fine. So, I think IOIs are helpful in that kind of situation. I wouldn't, if there's a girl and she's with a load of blokes and you just go in completely cold and you're uncalibrated, that's probably not the smartest move. But, you're unlikely to get an ass kicking though, really, as long as you just, as long as you're respectful and kind of polite and everything, you should be fine. Yeah,
absolutely. What's the difference between true confidence and delusion? Pipe of crystal meth, in my experience, for me.
It doesn't matter. Delusion's fucking brilliant.
The question's been addressed to you, particularly from Infinite Stew. Troy, what's the difference between true confidence and delusion?
It's a good question. Well, I suppose the classic answer would be true confidence should come from actual accomplishments, and you think, well, actually, no, I do have value because I've done this and I've done that, and it's very tangible. Whereas delusion is a little bit more, well, it's delusion. It's a fantasy. But
by whose metric though? Because everyone has a unique lens on life. And we don't all see the same thing. It's a perspective lens that we all have on different things.
Well, so there's a couple of things that spring to mind with this. Firstly, I think it was Chateau Hartiste was famously said, irrational self-confidence is better than being a flannel, no self-confidence. So there's that. So even if you are a bit deluded, I mean, I'm probably fine. I'm definitely deluded. I've certainly been deluded at points in my life about my relative value, but I've gone in anyway, and I've got results because women are attracted to confidence, right? So a bit of delusion is okay. Obviously, you should still also be working on yourself, blah, blah, blah. But the other thing about this is, and I don't know whether you would co-sign this or not really, but you remember RSD, I don't know if you ever saw the blueprint that they did.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? That's 17,000 hour thing with Tyler going on about blah, blah, blah. But one of the things that really struck me from the blueprint.
Could I get a penicillin? Cocktail called penicillin.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Well, one of the things that really struck me from the blueprint, which I found really helpful, and people might think this sounds a bit hippie-ish, but he was saying, look, you're already enough. You're already good enough as a man for that woman. She's only another fucking human being. You're already good enough. You create your own cool, You might think, I walk into this bar and everyone's super cool and blah, 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 and I'm not. Fuck that. You create your own version of cool. It's like, no, I'm the shit. These people aren't. I'm where it's at. And you approach with that mentality.
100%. Why wouldn't you? Now, you've talked about this before as well, though, being the hero of your own story.
Exactly.
Fangirling for these fucking celebrities like Tate. Be the fucking hero of your own story, right?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you be?
Exactly. Completely.
Great point.
But at the same time, obviously, and again, you've got to hold these slightly conflicting ideas in your mind. At the same time, of course, you should be working on your value. Of course, you should be getting fit and working on your fashion and grooming and your money and all that shit. Yes, of course, you should be doing that. But in the interim, you've got to own it. You've got to own, no, I'm fucking great just because I am, just because I've got a unique perspective on the world. And it's fucking awesome. That's the kind of mentality you need to sort of go in with, if that makes sense. Now, funnily enough, now, probably having all these conversations and looking into this stuff, we're starting to recognize actually there's a hormonal aspect to this as well. Because, certainly I have to say over the last few weeks, I've probably felt more confident in social situations. I felt more dominant in social situations. Well, why is that? Well, it's partly because I'm addressing, some hormonal issues. So it's partly mindset, but it's also to do with the body as well.
To go back to your original point, it's a twofold thing, isn't it? It's getting real world feedback. So if a set of people tell you a thing, different people with no vested interest who don't know each other, and they tell you the same thing, that is a good indicator. That's what the generalized perspective of what people are seeing is. It could be positive, it could be negative, but often it's good to take it on as feedback and adjust things. That is the reality, or the way of developing self-awareness around your own issues and things you can improve. But then on the flip side is you absolutely want to be delusionally self-confident in situations and bring people into that frame, because that's the reality you put out, and that people enter your frame or they'll reject your frame. Why not have that frame as I'm an absolute boss? I think it's so it's a twofold.
And people do buy into the energy, man, the energy that you put out. And that's what I discovered when I was, all the way back in those Manchester clubbing days, when I kind of flipped, basically through doing a shed load of drink and drugs. I kind of flipped from, oh my God, I'm not good enough. If only I could be good enough for that amazing girl over there, to, well, fuck that. I'm just going to walk around as if I'm a fucking rock star, even though I'm obviously not. And it was amazing, because I thought, well, I'm just going to get laughed at, I'm going to get beaten up, or, whatever. And actually what happened was, by and large, people, particularly women, really bought into it. They actually took it at face value. I'd walk up super confident and cocky, and the girl actually fucking believes it. I was like, fuck. And that is actually, in the early stages of learning about this stuff, learning about game, that can actually be quite a mental mindfuck. Because on the one hand, secretly, deep down, you believe you're here, but then you're presenting as being here, and girls are believing you're here. It's like, fuck, and I think that screws with guys' heads a little bit in the beginning stages of this. But then,
well, that's essentially narcissism. It's a degree of narcissism, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because narcissists tend to have very low actual opinions of themselves, very low self-esteem, and what you're doing is you're presenting an image. But then the problem is there's a disconnect, and you start dating women. It happened to me, and they kind of see through it after a while, and they're just pissed off because you're not actually that dude. But if you act that way enough, you start through force of habit actually becoming that guy if you do it enough. So you do catch up eventually.
Yeah, you do catch up. But as I say, I do also now think that the hormonal side of things, the testosterone optimization side of things, I do think that plays a part in it, a larger part in it than I was ever really aware before.
It's what you don't know, and it's like, I've become a lot less agreeable since I've been back on the testosterone and getting the other hormones sorted out in a good way, where I just don't care as much. I'm less. We always talk about turning down the empathy dial at the beginning of interactions with women, because we have to go through the process of getting lots of leads into the funnel. A lot of them won't work out, and automatically by getting your hormones sorted out, you're less empathetic. You just don't give as much of a fuck if a girl flakes on you, if the girl doesn't respond, all this sort of stuff. So that's a positive for sure. I
also actually, one of the great harms that the sort of the black pill rhetoric does is it puts you too much in your head about things like looks and stuff. Because I remember years ago, and probably more than I would now, I remember years ago, I was pretty oblivious actually to the value of other guys around me, and I would walk in, there might be a guy who's like super good looking, maybe taller than me, whatever, all of these things these black pill guys go on about. Maybe he's chatting to a girl, and then I would just walk in and start talking to her, and it wouldn't even fucking really, because I was so delusional. I was like, no, I'm fucking awesome. Or there would be little things like, I think, well, I'm dressed cooler than that guy, or maybe I'm a bit better looking than that guy, but whatever. But his value objectively was probably higher, and I just walk in and just start talking to the girl. Now, I'm not saying it would work out every time she would go off with me, but sometimes it did, and it was that sheer self-belief that would carry me through. But the problem is, and I'm not a black pill person by any means, but you start to internalize that stuff, and then you're a bit like, oh, hang on a minute, she's talking, she was talking to that guy, he looks a bit, she's not going to go for me, and you get into your head about that sort of stuff, and all of that is fucking terrible for your game, because actually the more delusional you are, or the more just like not aware of that shit that you are, the more success you're going to get.
100% agree with that. Zachary Moore says one of the most groundbreaking things I learned from Troy's work is affirmations.
Well, affirmations are, so I don't do them as much now, but I went through a period of saying affirmations to myself, and I just wrote a load of them, just things like, I'm fucking awesome, I'm the best looking guy, I'm fucking amazing looking, women love me.
Let's bring them back. Let's bring them back for the edge. We'll have some edge-based affirmations that guys will turn you into Daniel Craig. And then you'll turn up looking really pointy. Like it's going to be like morph your body.
I'm a monster. I'm a dangerous man.
Hi guys, what advice do you give for guys who are married, who got married when they procreated when young, blue-pilled due to needing to see their kids, can't live the travel lifestyle you guys enjoy? What are your options? What advice do you have for guys who married when young? Okay, so basically they're tied into a relationship. They can't do anything.
Well, it depends what So
get in touch. It's too big a question, really. Just the easiest thing to do, Sean, is send us an email. Send Troy an email, me an email, and we'll just get on we'll create a WhatsApp group and talk about it, because it sounds like a bit of a lifestyle overhaul. Biggest thing I learned from Troy's book was always sex first, relationship after. From Yup Indeed, I'd always thought I should try and build a good relationship first, but every relationship I see goes on that model. Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? Whether you want a one night stand or you want to get married, the best thing to do is sleep with her as quickly as possible, isn't it?
Yeah, to establish, because there has to be that physical attraction component to it. Otherwise, you haven't really got anything.
Well, she holds all the cards. Let's be fucking honest. The entirety of game is creating this illusion that she's chasing us, when actually we just desperately want to bang her as quickly as possible. I mean, that's essentially what it is. And as soon as you have done, the cards flip. You can still be needy and fuck it up, but essentially you've got the keys to the kingdom, because she's fucked you. So as long as you don't do something dramatically needy, she's just not interested at all in seeing you again for whatever reason, the power really does flip hands, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I was talking about this the other day with somebody, but it's far easier to flip from the play. Oh, we were talking about it actually on Access Vegas. Actually, this whole thing came up, but it's far easier to flip from. Oh, I'll tell you what it was. It was because this girl on the show, who was ironically was a stripper, was saying that she used to make blokes. She said, "Oh, if you come across as the player, then women like me are just going to put you into I'm just going to fuck him, and like on the first night kind of thing. But if I take you seriously as boyfriend material," she said, "I make guys wait for 3 months sometimes to have sex." And it's like, well, and we were all saying, well, I want to be in the first box. I don't want to be in the fucking 3-month box. And then, of course, the reality is that you can then, because once you've slept together and probably, the feelings, the oxytocin starts to run and the feelings start to develop, you can transition that into the boyfriend more easily than you can, if you're sitting around with your dick in your hand for 3 months, and then what happens if you do something and just to fuck it up, and then after 3 months, you're like, actually, I see you more as a friend. You've wasted all of that time. It's far better to get intimate more early in the thing, and then think, okay, so is this girl cool? Do I want to hang out with her? And if you do, just start to transition it more towards boyfriend.
Yeah, I think it was Janko that talked about it. He goes, don't mix the message, either pick something and be it. But most guys, we're talking about, especially with the edge stuff, be the really sexual guy, be the fast sex guy, and just don't mix the message. Go on every date. You're going to have one drink and try and pull her home, right? And you're going to get lots of girls who are not into that, and you're not congruent with that. But far better if you want to train that muscle to just present that image to yourself and to her. And eventually you'll step into those shoes with more conviction, and you will become a guy to a degree. And that's definitely. And again, I mean, it's like all of these things. It's that dualistic thing, because this doesn't mean that you're disrespecting her as a woman. It doesn't mean you're being you're not being nice to her. It doesn't. You've got to be the gentleman as well. You're also being the gentleman. You're also a cool guy to be around. But the underlying context of every interaction is basically sexual. You can be both at the same time, and that's really, I think, what you have to be, or in my view, anyway. 100% agree. Chris said, just did 6 approaches in 40 minutes. Good lad. Although I'm not sure how you're commenting on the stream if you're currently approaching, but good lad nonetheless. Jasper says, having a dark tetrad personality is probably the worst thing for a functioning society.
Well, maybe, but the reality is, firstly, however many of these live streams we do, we could be live streaming every day for 23 hours a day, and most guys still wouldn't do it. And secondly, we're not here to create. We're not doing this video in order to create a perfect society. We're doing this video to help guys navigate the dating marketplace. We've got to look at what works versus what doesn't. So,
it's not about being moral, is it? And about wanting certain things to work. It's just actually what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Suppose I'm walking in my track pants and suddenly got eye contact of 2 seconds. What should I do then? She's already seen me staring at her. Obviously,
as that guy on Twitter says, whip it out.
Whip it out. But go and approach her. And then when you say, "Oh, hey, I just saw you," that stacks up, because you did just see each other. So she's going to be like, "Yeah, okay." It's not truly a cold approach. It's more of a kind of lukewarm approach.
Is he worried about wearing the track pants though?
Maybe, but then in that case, again, just have conviction. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You live in a certain reality. Your job is to have so much conviction. You pull people into that reality. That's what developing game is. That's learned charisma. That's what we're really talking about.
Yeah,
like having conviction. Tusk, you heading back to Lviv? Yes, I am. I'm going to head back there next Saturday. If anyone would like to join, I'm taking a few students down. So get in touch. I'm doing bespoke kind of sessions. I'll be down there for at least a month. Super easy to access from Poland. No men of dating age, lots of hot women, super cheap, good weather, not dangerous. I know it now, having spent a month there recently. All 4 guys I took there are going back separately. That's how much they enjoyed it. They're literally returning to a war zone because they liked it that much for dating and charging around. It's just amazing.
Alex going to go?
Crazy Alex is coming. Frog Matrix is coming. And then we've got, I think, 3 students coming down. So it's going to be good. Although Frog Matrix is only coming for a long weekend, I think. I've got a stall in John Matrix, not Frog Matrix. He just likes his alternative therapies. Chris says, did some sessions with James in Warsaw and bought the edge well. It's so important to get feedback, guys. I lost a lot of girls from my own trial and errors. Yes. Good to see you, Chris. I got Chris hammered last night and he got the Asian glow, you know, that classic Chinese thing of going bright red, like an angry emoji. And he's been suffering. And he messaged me today going, I've never drunk so much alcohol. Never again. Well, don't hang out with me. Musk was banging on my head. Yeah, but is that an achievement? Delusion lacks competence. Heading to Porto, any good for day game? No, it's more of a coupley's place. The trouble with pretending to be higher value than you actually are, go suss you out quick, possibly.
Well, I mean, the only thing on that is it's not about it's nuanced. It's not about pretending to be something you're not. I mean, I would never say to it, you know, you don't want to be pretending to. This is an exaggeration, but say, oh, you know, that's my Bugatti over there, or yeah, I've got homes in the south of France. If that's not your, like, we're not talking about lying. It's just like high value means different things. It doesn't necessarily mean about, oh, I've got this super high paying job or something if you haven't, or I'm a multimillionaire. It's not like that. It's oh fucking, how do I say this without sounding just wishy-washy? But it's about how you carry yourself and the energy that you communicate, right? That's your value. It comes from you. We're not saying pretend to be Andrew Tate or pretend to be somebody you're not. You're building that value in the background.
Yes. Tessa said, can Troy expand on why he thinks men shouldn't have kids? His Twitter is ways.
Should or shouldn't?
Shouldn't. His Twitter is ways. I think he said his Twitter suggests denigrating marriage with married men with kids.
Well, I mean, I don't think men shouldn't have kids. I think men should. I mean, you know, I'm not advocating for the end of the species. I think guys should do what they want to do. I don't think marriage is, you know, I think many people in this space. I don't think marriage is a particularly good thing for guys to get into, particularly in the West. That doesn't mean you don't have kids, though. I mean, there's other people I know are exploring different ways of navigating that. Whether it's, you know, getting together with somebody abroad, and maybe you're, you know, not getting into that sort of domestic setup, but you have children, you're supporting them, and you're kind of doing your own thing as well. I mean, I think there's different ways of doing this. I mean, legal marriage, I think, is problematic. I don't think I'm particularly an outlier for saying that. I think a lot of people recognise that, you know. And I'm not even just saying that. I'm not even just saying that from some kind of red pill perspective. It's just like looking around me, looking at friends that I've got in my own family, shit like that. So, you know, but whether you have kids or not, that is a very personal thing. And I'm not saying people shouldn't have kids. I think that's a different thing.
Essentially, it doesn't matter. It's down to the individual. Look, not to be too nihilistic, but the world is going to be, everything to do with humanity is going to be wiped from the face of the earth. The sun will eventually explode. None of it is matters whatsoever. So if it makes you happy to have kids, then have kids, and if it doesn't, the idea don't.
I mean, the only thing I would say is that sometimes I think that guys, you know, and it gets pushed a little bit by certain people within the space on Twitter. You know, it's, oh, just find a good woman, settle down, don't be this degenerate playboy. You don't want to be the old guy in the club and all that shit. You know, and guys lose sight of the fact that actually there is another way. If you know, for whatever reason you feel that conventional route isn't for you, it doesn't mean that you're going to have to go and sit in a nursing home and die. I mean, you can have a fucking great time through your 40s, probably through your 50s. We know guys of all ages who are. I mean, I know a guy. We both actually know. You know, Canadian John. I think. I think he was on the edge last time. I mean, he's fucking in his 60s. He sold his house in Canada, and he's going to be traveling. He's going to be nomadic full time, and he's seeing all these like young 20-year-old Brazilian girls and shit. I mean, you know, it sounds fucking great to me. I don't see the problem. Now, admittedly, he was married before and he does have children, fine. But the point is, you can keep this going for a long time. So you don't feel like, oh, I've got to fall into that conventional mode because otherwise my life's over. It really isn't.
Yeah, agreed. What's curmudgeon me?
Like grumpy.
SJS, but why is Tusk a curmudgeon? Curmudgeon.
Like a grumpy old git, basically.
Well, I'm hungover. That'll probably be why.
Well, you're not Alex Forrest yet, are you?
Well, I'm hoarding leads, but I'm not hoarding leads from literally a decade ago.
These pesky young kids. I remember when day game was day game.
Jay Ahern says this dark gentleman tried to steal my phone at Elephant and Castle Station last night.
Who's that?
Some guy called Jay Ahern. This dark gentleman tried to steal my phone. I
think there's some racial undertones.
No, he's just fucking around. Whatever, it's just funny.
Yeah.
Dandy in the Underworld has a question about Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway. Send me an email or show an email. We'll go into that in detail. How's the Ukrainian language going for Tusk? Yes, I learned the alphabet yesterday, and it's tied to very strange words. So pineapple for A is ananas. Baraban for B is drums. Yenot is a raccoon for the Y sound. Jabba is the Z sound with a frog.
Jabba.
Steve Jabba. Steve Jabba jacking one off.
Well, it's been about it's been about 3. It must be time for another Steve Jabba video. It's been about 3 weeks now, hasn't it?
I mean, it's just so low brow, isn't it? When he was rinsing Brooding Seas book. Yeah, I saw Brooding Bell End. It's just so childish. It's like he's just a comedy villain. Someone called it right. He's like he's an English John Anthony. It's so true. He is. They're both like.
Yeah, but he says, "Oh right, I'm going to be coming out with some more videos, lads." And then like 3.5 weeks go by, and then he comes out with some random roast video, and then disappears again.
Yeah, that's true. Tusk lad, is Kezia single yet? Oh, Sambo. Our mutual friend Sweeney reckons Sambo's porked her. So
Sweeney.
Fluid Social is the ones who ask.
We know someone else who's been intimate with her, though, don't we?
We do.
Mr. Loverman behind the decks.
We know who it is. No one cares, Tusk. Flower Power says.
Well, he's right away, isn't he? I mean, no one cares, really. We're all dead.
What he's done is he's asked 2 questions, and then he just come in with no one cares, Tusk. He asked me originally, do you still approach in London? No, I don't. I'm very rarely in London. I'm now tax resident in Dubai, and I go back to see friends and family, but I'm very rarely in London. He's also put, what do you do when a girl smells off? It depends the type of odor. Are we talking about on a date, maybe breath, or are we talking about in a more intimate setting? Neither are desirable, and for me, on a personal level, both are deal breakers, if I'm being honest.
What if she craps herself on the date?
That's fine.
The old Cleveland steamer.
The South Cleveland steamer.
The old Amber Heard.
Some of those are brilliant. On
That's a good Cockney rhyming slang, isn't it? Yeah, she left an Amber Heard on the bed.
Yeah. She left the amber. There were some great ones though. Cleveland steamers, just when you dump on a bird's chest for no real reason. The Angry Pirate was a good one, where you stamp on her toe, so she's bouncing up and down, and then you jizz in her eye, so she's bouncing like an angry pirate. Or the Houdini, which again in London you couldn't get in the woke sphere, you couldn't get away with anymore. So we won't
Dirty Sanchez.
Dirty Sanchez, yes.
You remember that one when you do the moustache?
Yeah, it's pretty grim ones. I mean, I'd love to see who's actually doing these things, and salute them if they are.
Mr. M.
Dandy in the Underworld says, "I'm not paying $250 for that info." So essentially, like most financially unviable candidates, they basically just want free info. Fair enough. Igor says, can you see my questions? Yeah, but Igor, they just weren't very good questions. You've put how to deal with being a man there. I'm 5'7". I mean, basic stuff that you probably should have worked out if height was an issue, which is wear insoles, which it may add, and boots, which may add 2 or 3 inches, or go for leg lengthening surgery if you really want to be extreme about it, or just forget about it and own it. What do you think? This is an interesting question, maybe to Marinos, but Tusk, would you like my new shoes routine work for day game?
I think in this political climate, it's probably a little bit risky.
Tusk could be a huge influence in the space. Unfortunately, his free spirit, aka drug taking, and no fucks given attitude, aka more drug taking, is at our detriment. Probably better for him in the long run. Yeah, sure. I mean, the goal was never really to be a huge influencer. It was really just to travel the world as a guy with no real plan, exonerating myself through drinking and drugs and getting the fickle great old wash to pay for the privilege, and it seems to work okay.
But why is it bad? Like, what's he saying, that you should be a better role model for the youth or something?
I'm not sure. Maybe you can elaborate, Tess, before we end the stream. We'd be going for 1 minute 20. 1 hour 20. This is actually a good question from TJ, maybe to end on. Which do you think gets better results? 50 cold approaches direct or 20 IOI approaches?
Well, realistically, probably 20 IOI approaches. I would say the likelihood is you're going to get tangible results out of that.
100% agree with that.
But, you know, you see that super hot girl and she doesn't even see you, and, you know, are you going to take your shot or not? I mean, you know, it's better to take it than not.
You take your shot. By way of example today, so very limited sample, I was dead in my room most of the day watching true crime stuff. JCS criminal psychology is very entertaining. I slugged myself out of the hotel. I had a walk around, did my 10,000 steps, which is my target on my step counter each day to try and lean out. And one really hot Ukrainian girl I sat down next to on a bench, had a 10-minute conversation with, didn't look at me at all, but it was she was very into it. And then the 4 other approaches I did, I've had an IOI from. So just from these very small sample size, it'll be interesting just on a self-preservation level. Maybe when we do another stream in a few days, I'll tell you which ones of those actually replied versus the cold approach. 1 cold approach versus 3 or 4 IOI approaches. We'll see what the results are. Any day game events in Eastern Europe, September, October? Yes, you can come and join me, and possibly Troy if he's there, but definitely me in Lviv, Ukraine. I'll show you around. It's an amazing place for dating. There's no men. They've either left the country of dating age, they've left the country, or they've gone to war. There's loads of really hot women who are bored as fuck. There's no foreigners. It's a fantastic place for beauty and femininity. It's super cheap, and I know it now inside out. And I'm going to be there with a few coaches and a few students. So come and join in Lviv. Send me an email, info@jamestusk.com, include your WhatsApp number. Or Istanbul. I'm going to be back there 21st to 24th of September. And then obviously after that, we head off to Colombia to bigger and better things. Tess has just clarified the final point. My point was not that Tusk should be a better role model. It's just an observation that Tusk is leaving untapped opportunities in the influencer space and losing out on multi-million pounds. Well, I like his conviction in my abilities, because I'm not sure I've got the same level of conviction, but I'll take it as a compliment.
Well, I mean, hard to say really, but I mean, apparently Zerka's making a lot of money. I don't exactly know how, but
yeah, he needs to fund his cocaine habit, doesn't he? So he's got to be putting it in.
Apparently, so none of that Zerka stuff I was talking to you about offline, because you know we were meant to do something. None of it happened because basically,
oh really?
Yeah, because unfortunately, because he was meant to come to Vegas, and it wasn't just me. There was other people. He was like, the reason Pearl was in Vegas was she was meant to be doing a show with him, and he just like missed his flight. So whatever. Maybe another time. I don't know. Maybe it's for the best. I don't know.
So Tess is calling for it. He goes, Tusk, go on Fresh and Nutsack, go on Just Pearly Nutsack, and a few podcasts, and get stuck in.
Well, I mean, you know, they're all
really
crying out for Tusk, like because I you know, obviously I'm a shameless hustler, so I know all these people, and they're all crying out for Tusk the whole time. I mean, they're all like, oh, you know, like Rollo. Every time I speak to Rollo, hey, is Tusk coming up? Like he asked me about 5 times.
Is that Czech poker player Tusk coming up?
Yeah. He literally asked me. He literally asked me about 5 times. We got in the private group. He's like, "So is James coming?" And I was like, "No, sadly not this time." Blah blah blah. And then a few days later, "So is Tusk going to be there?" So they're crying out for a bit of the action, but unfortunately, Tusk is you just don't like America, do you? I mean, which I don't blame you for. But you know.
Although basically he's saying, I think he's addressing you now, Troy. This test guy is saying, why don't you leverage your friendship with the Tates on revenue streams? You could literally.
Well, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I think, to be honest, I think I'm too small for them to want to bother with me now. I mean, I do know Tristan and, you know, a bit better. And, you know, I mean, because now they're out of house arrest as well. I mean, I may go to Bucharest. I'll probably go to Bucharest again at some point in the next, you know, couple of months and hopefully, you know, get to see him or whatever. But I think in terms of doing content, I mean, they're so big now. Are they really going to fuck with the likes of me? Probably not. I mean, it's all Tucker Carlson now and shit like that, isn't it? So, you know.
Yeah, maybe. The Turks will be waiting for you at the airport with pitchforks. I hope so. I hope I get a warm welcome.
That'd be great viral content, wouldn't it?
Literally just standing there with like
UK dating coach gets beheaded in Istanbul.
Oh god, it was quite polarizing last time I was there. You were there as well, of course, because we got these. We get obviously a lot of hate from some of the Turkish guys, like real deep hate. But then we've also got this kind of loyal fan base in Turkey with Turkish day game guys who just want to show us around and show us a bit of Turkish hospitality, which is quite cool in a way, isn't it? Like, so there is. It's not just all hate of some.
Well, old Gokhan.
Yeah,
gave us the keys. Gave us the keys to the city, didn't he?
John Travolta and a couple of the other lads showed us around. That was good.
Yeah.
I think that's about it, really. Any final thoughts?
No, not really. Just obviously, like, the edge is open now for another 2 days. So if you want to join, get involved. I mean, because a lot of guys particularly like online on Twitter, really focused in on the high tier thing. We had this 6-month transformation program for 27k, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you guys are charging 27k," and blah blah blah. And I was like, well, actually, it was going to go up to 50k, so 27k is a fucking bargain. But anyway, regardless. But look, I mean, the reality is, if you just want to join the online course and get 6 weeks worth of private webinars with us, well, we go even more hard than this, because obviously we're the Matrix is muting us on platforms like YouTube. If you want the real deal for 6 weeks, plus the online course, which is like 2-3 hours worth of pre-recorded modules, plus being in a WhatsApp group with us where we'll help you and mentor you and give you accountability and motivation, it's only $797, right? And then if you want to come on the bootcamp with us, you get all of that, and you come on the bootcamp with us in October in Colombia, in Bogota, it's only $2,797. So, it's a no-brainer. As your friend Sweeney would say, it's a no-fucking-brainer.
Guess who I saw the other day prowling around? Keith Chedwin. Keith Lemon.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, he was sitting there. No. He was sitting at a table kind of diagonally behind me in that place where you walk down from Puru and you hit Novice Triad, and you've got this kind of cocktail bar max outdoor bit, and you can kind of do a bit lazy. Yeah. And sitting with the cameraman and a couple of guys, and then I kind of went for a piss, and I noticed him sitting there with a mate and his bird in the shades trying to look cool.
How's his bird?
She looked all right. She's pretty, relatively, from what I saw briefly. Yeah.
Have you been working with Ludo?
Yeah. I've been doing some work with him. Yeah, he's a solid cameraman. I like him. Although now he's fucked off to see his wife for 4 days, so I've got to desperately, when he gets back, just pile in the last of the content before I fuck off to Lviv. Although I'm definitely going to try and film some stuff down there. So guys, look, just to sum up what Troy said, £797 for the Edge. It begins 31st of August. It runs for 6 weeks. We've taken version 1 and we put it into an actionable thing that we believe are the keys to the kingdom. On the webinars, we're getting various experts from the different categories on to talk about different things. For example, with the male hormone stuff, we've got Dave Lee as a guest speaker. He'll be running the show. We'll be asking him questions. You guys get to watch. You get to keep the streams forever. Invaluable content. Essentially, content that would cost you hundreds of pounds, if not thousands, to do in private consultations you're going to get for free. We've got a fashion guy coming in to talk about the fashion, a fashion expert who dresses guys up looking, dapper. We've got a fitness guy, a competitive bodybuilder of 25 years to come on to talk about extracurricular hormones if necessary, diet and fitness. So we've got about there's more than 6 webinars. I think it's about 10, and all the key categories. We've got experts coming on to talk about those things. The only banter one I did was getting the world's least banterous man, Les, on to talk about flirting and banter, which will be great. That'll be great.
Basically, guys.
I want to go back to the 90s apartheid, It's we'll stop him going into the political rants, but no, all jokes aside, it's going to be amazing. We've got experts on within the field, so it's not just doing the GP, general physician approach of trying to Andrew Huberman and be an expert in every single fucking thing. We're giving a take from what we know in our own life experience, but we're getting experts on to actually talk about these different areas. And then you guys are obviously on the streams. You can ask as many questions as you want. You've got access to these guys as well. And then on top of that, we give you the actionable approaching and dating stuff, how to really suit that up. That's all for $797. And you get constant WhatsApp support. You're on a private WhatsApp group with me and Troy, and then you're on a group WhatsApp group with the other guys doing the Edge, and you get webinars once a week, and you get generalized support from us if you actually work out the pricing, we're on less than an African rice farmer's wage per hour. You're getting it all for 6 weeks for £797. That's fuck all. If you can't afford that, go and work on your finances, right? That's not too expensive. That's a perfectly reasonable price tag. So
absolutely. And look, if you really want to do a payment plan, if you want to twist our arm, drop me an email, troy@realtroyfrancis.com, and we can talk about it. But, you know, I mean, in special cases, we can look at that as well.
Yeah, and then if you want to take the step up from that, an even better value deal, 2797, you get the Edge for 6 weeks, starting 31st of August, runs for 6 weeks. And then into that, literally as that ends, we have the Shadow Side Bootcamp. So day game, night game, grey area app teaching over 4 days in Bogota, an amazing place in Colombia. There's very few gringos, so you have a very high sexual market value. It's really, really hot women. It's Bogota's capital. Weather is good. The place is cool. We've been going there for years on end, so we know all the best day game spots, all the best bars, all the best clubs, all the best restaurants. We've got all the best contacts for extracurriculars, should you want to go down that path as well. It's literally like we've got the place absolutely sorted out. So you get the Edge, plus you get the 4-day bootcamp for £2,797, which is a massive discount on our usual bootcamp price. I charge the same as Troy, which is £4,279 for 4 days. So you get all of this. And on the bootcamps themselves, we're going to be filming you on our small 4K cameras with externalized audio. We're going to give you all that footage. We're going to sit down and break it down with you. You're going to meet really cool, like-minded men. And you're going to have me, Troy there, Mr. M there as well, Ege, possibly Les. So a really good group of guys. It's going to be a blast. Get in touch. Come and join us 19th to 22nd October. For either of those options, send us both an email or one or t'other. info@jamestusk.com or troy@realtroyfrancis.com. Include your WhatsApp number. And you have 2 days to do this, gents. It shuts forever this Tuesday, the 15th of August. That's the end of it.
Yeah. There's also the information page, which is the Edge at card.co. The link will be below, but basically you can read all about it on there, all of the different options. There are some direct payment links on there as well. So have a look at that also.
Nice one. Nothing else to add. It's been a waffling stream, as always, how I like it.
Well, I think we've got into some pretty good stuff, actually. You know, we started off kind of flanneling, but we've got into some pretty good game gold, I think, this stream. So,
yeah, maybe actually I'll get Renee to download it and upload it as a video. It could be some worthwhile content.
Yeah, there's some quite good content, because basically between us we know so much about this game nonsense that we can just cross-reference all of this stuff, you know, from like, you know, Good Looking Loser and Royce and RSD and all these different reference points. So
we're essentially the Chris Williamson. We're the Chris Williamson of the game world. We basically cherry pick all the expert opinions from other sources and compile them together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no original thoughts at all, but you know.
Yeah. Well, it was old Jobsy that said, didn't he? Old Jobsy said R&D is actually not research and development; it's rip off and duplicate and make better. So we're taking all the keys to the kingdom from different content creators of yesteryear and the present day, combining them all into actionable content to take you guys from flannel to fuckboy in 6 weeks. We will see you in the next stream, possibly tomorrow or possibly Tuesday, the last day to sign up. You know the details, gents. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you again soon.